What up, bitches? Jamie-Leigh here, offbeatphotographer.com. Today's Offcast episode is brought to you by one of my oldest and dearest friends. Her name is Tracy Dunaway, formerly Tracy Butler. We grew up together in Annapolis, Maryland, and she is here today because she's doing some really cool work in Washington, D.C., and I think you should consider booking her for your next family vacation or even just a random day, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. Learn about the capital of this country and find out all the little things that you maybe didn't learn in history class. Anyway, I'm here today with Tracy Dunaway. How are you today, Tracy?
Excellent, Jamie girl. How are you?
I am... Oh. What's that?
I know, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I forgot the Jamie girl. I'm not sure that you like that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No. Jamie girl is how I've become known to very many people, even people who weren't a part of our inner circle in high school. But no, Jamie girl's fine. That's funny. My mom still calls me that all the time. It's totally cool.
Yes, because you will always be Jamie girl.
Exactly. Well, it's funny how when you form relationships as a child, which obviously we did, how things, even when you completely change or your life takes a different path, you still kind of fall into that role of what you were. Like when we hang out, it's like Tracy and Jamie. You know what I mean? We kind of fall back into some of our used to positions and stuff. So
because we're comfortable, I think. Very comfortable.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, chosen family is what my friend Katie always says, and that's kind of what long-term friendships are about. You know what I mean? You could move away and not talk again because life grows apart, but then you always... the people you care about, you're always like, we got to go back to that, you know?
Yes. Even if it's once a year or, once a month, it's still, every time we get together, it's like no time has passed. Right,
exactly. Same with when we're IMing each other or, group emails or texts and things like that. Definitely. Well, so, and we've actually, the last couple of years, we've done a girls' camping trip, which I know I've gotten a lot of good pictures from.
Yes,
but we've also had a hell of a lot of good times at them as well. So.
Yes, it's been good getting together, getting away for the few days, roughing it.
Yeah, as much as...
yes, the glamping adventure.
Right, exactly.
It has been enjoyable, yes.
So I was thinking about it upstairs, being that we're both 37. We'll be 38 this year. We've known each other for like 25 or 6 years.
Yes.
I think I moved to Annapolis when I was about 11-ish. And...
Yes. What grade was that? Like sixth grade, yes.
Yep.
Just before 6th grade, yep.
Exactly. How long before that had you moved to Annapolis?
3 years we'd lived in Annapolis. Yes.
I thought it was
from
longer
Oklahoma.
than that.
No, we moved from Oklahoma in 3rd grade. So, yep. So it'd be just 3 years. I
thought you lived longer than that there.
No.
Oh, wow. So when you lived in a community called Revel Downs first, right?
Yes.
And then you moved to Whispering Woods, which is where I met you. When did that happen?
Maybe, I would say 5th grade, I guess.
Okay.
5th grade. Yeah, because I knew Chrissy in elementary school, and I met her in 4th grade.
Okay. What elementary school did you guys go to? Windsor Farm?
Windsor Farm.
Okay.
And then... I was walking my dog, Maestro, when I first moved into Whispering Woods up the hill, and he actually peed on her kickboard that she had out front, and she came out and caught him.
Oh, really?
And I was like, and we recognized each other, and we'd been friends ever since, so.
That's so funny, Maestro.
I know.
Was he like mostly new when you guys got to Annapolis?
He was probably about a year old.
Oh, wow, okay.
So,
because I remember Maestro, he lasted all throughout everything,
high school, yeah. He was 15 years old when he passed away.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and he was your dog in Schnauzer.
A miniature Schnauzer, yes.
Okay, yes. Your mom has a few of those now, too.
2 of those now, yes.
Okay.
Those little terrors. They're
yeah,
wonderful.
we love them. We love them, right?
One of them looks exactly like Maestro, so it's nice.
Oh, that's
like
cute.
It's reincarnated and came back to us.
Well, and
like that dog's purpose.
That dog, yeah, definitely. Especially with your mom, isn't that the story true where your dad brought Maestro home and your mom was unsure, and then your mom became
she was like, no! And yes, and then there was her baby after that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, that sounds about right. And
so funny.
The other cool thing about, so I had a very similar memory when I moved to Annapolis, Stonewood Court, Whispering Woods, And I remember that summer before 6th grade. I don't remember when I ran into you, but I ran into you at some point. I had my USA basketball.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah. I was such a little tomboy, and we met, and it was kind of the same thing, where it was just like an accident. But then we're like, oh, you're about my age. Okay, that's cool. And then I don't remember exactly, other than just we met one day, and then it was like, that was it.
Yep.
Because, I mean, we lived right across the street from each other.
And we were the same age, and our brothers were the same age, and it was like we all just became friends, just like that.
Exactly.
Played baseball at the end of on the other side of your house there.
Destroyed that poor woman's home. Yep.
It's all overgrown now.
Is it?
Yeah.
I bet you if we went up there, we could probably find about 15 baseballs in those.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, and that was kind of another thing that we had in common. You know, not only did we luck out and just move on the same street, and I'm sure I met Chrissy shortly after I met you.
Oh,
You were the
sure.
first, but Chrissy was probably shortly thereafter. But even though it didn't start right away in middle school, by the end of middle school, we had all had this love of sports, between softball and basketball specifically, and there were other ones along with that. But I can remember years, you know, catching for you in your front yard when you were trying to pitch or playing Cape St. Clair or Maga Vista softball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right down there in Mega Vista. Yep. We played basketball, softball. Were we always on the same teams?
No.
Definitely no. I don't think so.
I didn't start playing till I started out in Garcia and Cape St. Clair for both basketball and softball. And I played I was on Coach Jim Ware's team actually on Cape St. Clair, playing you guys on Maga Vista. And I think Chrissy's mom and Lindsay's mom, Miss Sheila and Miss Carol, there we go. They were either coaching or assisting. Whether or not it was Mr. John at the time, I'm not sure. But
I'm not sure either.
Yeah. But yeah, so we played against you, and it was later that I was like, oh, well, shit, Maga Vista, I'm going there, you know? Yeah. So,
interesting.
What, when you think back to middle school, we went to Magathie River and then Severn River, is there anything that sticks out in your mind? You know, we are celebrating our 20th high school reunion this year, so obviously a lot of people who we graduated with, we also went to middle school with. Right. Are there any memories that kind of stick out? I mean, it's such a long time ago, but yet it feels like yesterday.
Well, speaking of the softball, when my dad had access to the limo, and then he took us all in the limo brought us home, I think, from one of the softball games when we played. I think we played Cape St. Clair, and there was lots of animosity and. That was an interesting day. And
I'm pretty sure that was actually all the way in high school, though.
Was it? Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah.
So middle school.
It's so hard to remember middle school, right?
It is.
Yeah. I remember, I remember certain names of guys that you were kind of into back then.
We were way crazy.
Of course. Of course. And then I do remember a lot of times we'd go to the Blockbuster in Arnold. I remember doing that a lot with you guys. We were talking about earlier, Benfield, the ice skating rink.
Every Friday night we would go ice skating. Yes. Was that middle school? I guess so.
It must have been, yeah.
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 And my first kiss at the ice rink.
Oh, isn't that funny to think about now? My first kiss.
Miss Sheila rolling up in the car and catching me.
Oh, Miss Sheila. Yeah, no, actually my first kiss was in the wooded area behind your house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
A good little area.
Yeah,
that was nice.
That was another middle school memory of mine. There was like a dirt bike ramp back there. I remember doing that quite a lot.
Oh, yeah. We would hang out back there a lot, and there was like a rope swing at some point in time for a little while.
Yep.
And I remember actually Jacob.
Oh, yeah, Jacob
on it,
Waller.
and and he and it snapped and he fell. Luckily it wasn't far and he didn't hurt himself.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Another funny memory with Chrissy that I cannot share. But
you're welcome, Chrissy.
Yes. It was so funny. But
right on. Yeah. Oh, that's good times.
She'll know what I'm talking about. You're welcome, Chrissy.
Yeah, you're welcome, Chris. She's a well-respected official now. We shouldn't. But no, that's so funny with middle school. And then before we knew it, we were in high school, and we actually had a disadvantage in that we didn't get to go to our high school until we were juniors in high school.
Gosh, yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah, because our high school, Broadneck High School, was being renovated. And so we spent 6th, 7th at Magathie, and then we spent basically 8th, 9th, 10th at Severn, and I remember my freshman year playing softball in varsity. We didn't even play at Broadneck. We played at Anne Arundel Community College. We played on their field.
Really?
Yeah, there was no softball field yet.
Where did we play as on JV then?
We practiced at Broadneck Park. And you guys might have played at Broadneck Park? I don't remember. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Because we played at AACC in the varsity.
Yeah, no, we never played at AACC. Must have been Broadneck Park.
Yeah, because we would practice on the one field and you guys would practice on the other. Yeah. So that sounds about right? So yeah, I mean, isn't that crazy? So we were juniors before we even got to go to experience Broadneck. So I feel like Broadneck, the building, isn't as familiar to me as it would have been had I gone all 4 years.
That's true. I've never thought about it that.
I mean, it was
beautiful when it opened, and it was nice to go to a brand new school. And I've never really thought about that. But yeah.
But you're right. It was worth the wait just because it was a brand new facility, and before that, and part of the reason for the construction was that freshmen didn't go to the high school.
That's right.
They were still in middle school.
Only a 10, 11, 12. That's right.
Yep. So now so in high school, I remember. I think you were part of yearbook for a while, weren't you?
I had I took the yearbook class. It was like an elective class in senior year. But I've noticed all the kids now they get out early and go to work. They had work study, but if they don't. If they have all their credits and stuff, they only have to take like 2 classes now, which is nice. And they get to go and do what they choose. I guess do college or work.
Right. Either
way,
would have
been nice instead of filling your day up with things you don't want to do. But I took yearbook. It was interesting. My favorite part was the putting together all the people's senior pages when people would send in their pictures and things
like of them
that.
Of children, and you trying to guess who was going with who. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so putting together those pages was fun, but
what?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what was your favorite sort of thing like back in high school? What was your thing? Maybe even if it wasn't a club or a sport, what was your favorite pastime in high school? Do you remember?
I really don't remember. Just hanging out with the girls, really. You know. Yeah. We always had a good time. We were always doing something. Sports. Softball, really. Yeah. Just hanging out, working. I always worked.
Yeah, you worked at Super Fresh there in Arnold.
Forever, yes.
Yeah, a long time. From the time you were about 16 until...
I was 21,
yeah,
I think, 22.
Long time. I worked there for 3 months until I got fired.
Yeah, that place, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were the super...
There was a lot of good times, though, there. I met a lot of different people.
Exactly.
And that's where I met... Jason Pumphrey and all the guys that lived across the street, and we all partied there after high school. Many nights at the old 501. Right,
which was actually owned by the parents of somebody we graduated with in Leslie Lapham.
That's right.
I just learned that recently, and
like Samantha. What's her name? Her mom's name was Sam. Maybe I'm not sure.
That sounds.
Did she go by Sam?
Possibly. The only memory I have of her mom is we did have one spaghetti dinner there at 501 in high school before a softball game. That's the only memory I have of meeting her mom. When you're in high school, you're so wrapped up in yourself that I regret not getting to know people outside of like my inner people more. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that... I do remember going to that house before we hung out at that house in later years.
Well, even in high school, though, we hung out with lots of different people.
Lots of people,
because, we got to go back because we have to talk about Heather and hanging out over there, at Heather's house in Mega Vista. That was fun.
Right, exactly. We had a lot of... We happened to go through high school and just kind of meet... different groups of people, whether it was Heather and her crew, and then later with Stacy and Suzanne.
The Heidlers,
yeah, absolutely. We definitely had a lot of different interests, and I think that's, I'm always glad, even though we definitely had our core, right? We were definitely our core, but for the most part, all of us, we branched out. It wasn't like a one main that was all that we did. We were hanging out with the artists. We were hanging out with the athletes. We were hanging out with, some all the, different kinds of groups. And I think that I know for me, increased my you learn from people who are different from you kind of thing. So I definitely enjoyed that we were eclectic like that.
Right. I agree. Yes. It's nice to learn about different cultures even, and I don't know. Lots of different things. It's neat.
Yeah.
Ages, you grow up a little bit, but...
Well, that's
are still immature a lot of the time.
Right. Well, Facebook definitely makes it easy for us now to kind of see what some folks are coming up and doing. I would be interested. I did not go to our 10-year reunion, but I am interested in the 20, just because Facebook gives a very idyllic, not a whole picture perception.
Your picture perfect postcard, view of your life, really, which is... Could be deceiving.
And I'm not thinking that the people I meet, like, I can't wait to hear the gossip on that. Like, that's not so much. Right. But it's more just, to get a more accurate view of, for them, for me, and vice versa. Because, hanging out with some of the women I'm helping on the planning committee, most of them are not ones that I would have considered in our clique of people. Right. But I always had friendly interactions. Exactly. And so now, though, that we're adults, a few of them, I've talked to, and it's like, wow, we have a lot more in common than I realized. And that's kind of been a weird and very cool thing for me, is some of the people you maybe shut out in high school because of your own insecurities, or, what you heard in the rumor mill, or all the other high school things prevents you from maybe...
Or also the way they may have behaved.
And everybody grows up. There is that. Yep, definitely. But now as grown-ups, approaching middle age, it's definitely like, oh, wow, I never knew this about you, even though I've known you for so long. And it's like, I wish I had known that sooner. Or at least I wish I had felt more empathy. You know what I mean? Because certain people experience things that you're like, oh my God.
Right.
Good or bad. But I think that, because some folks say that they don't want to come to the reunion because they've seen everybody on Facebook, and that's enough for them. But that's not... Is
that the response you're getting?
It's been response for a couple of our predecessors. The class of 98 last year, I know, had a tough time recruiting people to come and things like that. And I think that's been the common, we got Facebook now, we have Facebook now, which is fine.
Or I see all the people I want to see.
Right. But I have found, especially in my business of photography and now podcasting, is when you shut people out because of what you think based on Facebook or whatever, it really only tells like a quarter of the story. And you never know how that relationship is going to come back and possibly benefit or teach you something or something like that. So my introverted, shy self has tried to be a little less...
Good. I'm glad.
Yes.
I know. I was very surprised to hear that you wanted to, we're in the group of people and putting together the reunion, but I'm so glad that you are, because that makes me happy.
Well, and that's funny you say that, because I say that all the time. I would not be the kind of person back in high school who would have been like, let's plan the...
Right.
You definitely, I think, were more in that realm of, like I said, the yearbook and some of the, some of the, what was that one?
Well, I was in the Key Club.
Right.
Which was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little different because when we went to England, it was over for a week over like Thanksgiving break.
Is that all it was? Is just a week? You were in England?
Yes.
Really? I thought it was so much longer than that. And you were about it was like between sophomore and junior year, wasn't it?
I believe it was my junior year.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I was 6 girls, I believe. And, I didn't really know. I wasn't close with any of them. Most were seniors.
Okay.
They were a lot smarter than I was, that's for sure. But the Key Club was a community service kind of group. And we stayed with students over in England. And it was an awesome experience. I got to meet, a bunch of students over there. And I still am in contact with Pradeep.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's a name I recognize.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit on Facebook.
Cool.
And he's still in like the theater business, so he comes to New York occasionally.
Oh, cool.
So I said, one time I'm going to meet you.
Yeah. No, it's funny about that England trip, and I never knew it was through the Key Club. I never knew that. I always thought it was your grand.
Well, we went again like the summer for like 3 weeks.
That's right, and you explored. But
yes.
I remember a marked change in you in that week. I really do remember. I remember. Maybe it was just my teenage brain at the time, but I do remember when you left Tracy and when you came back, and I was like, she's changed. I do remember very vividly that week. That's why I thought it was longer, because I do remember thinking, wow, she's changed a little bit. For the better, I think, but definitely it was like, oh, okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like that definitely changed perspective a little bit.
I think it did, yes. And because I, struggled with, usually... at home there was people always around, didn't feel like lonely, but over there I didn't, really fit in with the girls that I went with or really the girl that I stayed with. So I had to really learn how to, I guess, break out of my own little shell. And I don't know, I learned a lot about myself and maybe how to interact with people differently on that trip, I think. So it was fun.
I was going to say, and you're the best traveled, at least you were back then, of all of us. Your granny, I mean, you've been to a lot of places in Europe, haven't you? Yeah, like name some of the places you visited.
Well, we did England and Scotland on the second trip we did. It was about 2 weeks, I think, maybe 3. And then my uncle was stationed somewhere in Germany. So we spent about 3 weeks. We flew into Germany and then just traveled, rented a van, and we traveled to Amsterdam. We traveled to Austria and just all sorts of, different things. Like we saw the salt mines in Salzburg, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like the Neuschwanstein Castle, the castle that the Cinderella Disney Castle is modeled after. We toured that.
Nice.
Just lots of history and neat things. Europe's history is so much older than ours here.
It's crazy. So, we think of an old building as like a couple hundred years old, whereas they're like castles that have been thousands or whatever. Yeah.
Right. But what's pretty awesome is that our American Constitution is still the oldest living constitution in the history of the world.
Wow. Interesting.
Continuous.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Well, so, we talk a little bit about middle school and high school, our external experiences. But one thing that I do remember from both middle school and high school that relates to what you're doing now is your dad has been a tour guide in D.C., and you talk about some of the history there in Europe. You and your dad actually know a hell of a lot of history, and I know you're still learning, but still you know a hell of a lot of history about our nation's capital as well. Where did that come from with your dad? He was in the Navy. Was it that?
Nope. Actually, his dad started.
No.
So, yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. In D.C.?
In D.C. He lived there, and he owned a bar in D.C. And
your grandfather
my grandfather owned a bar.
Okay.
And he sold the bar and made some money, and he was just sitting around the house,
Looking for something to do, yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, so his wife at the time, I guess that would have been my dad's mom, Grandma Janet, and she said, you can't just sit around here, you got to find something to do. So he started driving a taxi.
Oh, okay.
And just, he knew D.C. and then just started picking up the history
Was
and
he
things
in
like
DC?
that.
He was living in DC?
He lived
Okay.
in the city, yes, at the time. So he just picked up the history as he went along and then started his own tour guide business. And then when my dad left the Navy, he, joined with my grandpa and they started the bigger business, I guess, at that point, because it would have been just my grandfather with one vehicle.
Okay. Yeah, like what kind of vehicle was it back then? Do you know?
Gosh, it was, no, I don't know
Not
what
a clue.
he had by himself. No.
I'd be curious, yeah.
I think it would probably be one of those old, like, I don't want to say child molester vans, but yeah, but one with windows, those creepy Dodge, big 15-passenger vans. But,
yeah.
I mean, that was Dad's first vehicle, was the 15-passenger vans, just the old Dodge like Ram 1500, I think they were, but...
Yeah. And so your dad was born and raised in D.C.?
Born and raised in D.C., yes. So right outside of D.C. he was born.
Okay.
And then...
On the Maryland side or Virginia side?
On the Maryland side.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, so how old was he when he joined the Navy?
Oh, man, these are good questions, and I don't know. I think he was maybe 20, 21.
Okay. And he met your mom when he was in the Navy?
No, he knew my mom like in high school. They didn't go to the same high school, but I think they had friends. They had mutual friends, and that's how they...
But your mom, I thought she was in Oklahoma.
No, so they were... My grandpa was in the Air Force.
Ah, okay.
So he was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base.
Gotcha.
Which was like right near where my dad lived outside of the city.
Okay.
So...
Okay. So they've known each other since high school.
Yes.
Wow.
And and when my mom got older, she had a job in the city in D.C., and my dad drove a beer truck. And then they would hang out and meet in the city after work and like hang out at, they say, Fort Washington a lot. It's a beautiful fort there on the Potomac River.
Oh, wow.
You can still go out and, hang out there if you'd like.
Right.
And he said that used to be like the makeout spot.
Nice.
And then they got married in Maryland.
Was your dad doing the tour business by then? He was still
not
doing
at
the beer
all.
shop. Okay.
Yeah, he was still, I think, he joined the Navy at that point because he was in the Navy when they got married. I'm not sure the whole exact timeline. But These are good questions that I need to ask and find out.
Right. Approximate though, ballpark. Yeah. So he joined the Navy after he married your mom. Before you married your mom.
Before he married my mom.
Did he go anywhere crazy? Or was he mostly stateside?
He was in Alaska.
Oh,
Not too crazy, but he was on a boat, so a lot of the time went Asia, somewhere.
And he's too young for Vietnam or anything like that.
No, way too young for that. So
that's what I thought.
My grandpa said he was in Vietnam. He made one flight in Vietnam. He was actually a flight engineer, and he did one flight to Vietnam, and he picked up a wounded soldier that actually passed away on his way home, and he said he didn't want to go back ever again, and lucked out he didn't have to.
Wow.
So
but
then he actually ended up flying on Air Force One. He was the flight engineer for Air Force One.
Was he really?
Lyndon B. Johnson.
No kidding.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So we have some neat memorabilia.
I bet you do. So DC is kind of ingrained in your family's fabric on your dad's side, it seems, or even your mom's side to a certain degree.
Yeah, mom's. Yeah.
Wow.
Because she lived at Andrews for a while, and then after Papa's job was done with that, and he was stationed in Oklahoma, I believe. After that, my mom stayed here because she was getting married, and then they after they got married, then he was stationed in Key West, Florida.
Oh, okay.
And my mom actually became a cop.
Oh, interesting.
And he was in the Navy, but then she got pregnant.
Uh-huh.
And they had me, and then we immediately moved to Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
They were stationed in Hawaii.
Isn't that a shame that, the two coolest places you lived were in the beginning of your life that you don't remember?
Right, exactly.
Not that Annapolis isn't cool, but Key West and Hawaii, man, I don't know.
Yes. And
that's cool.
Yep, so we always lived in nice places. And then San Diego, where Michael was born.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which I kind of remember a little bit.
Oh, nice.
And then Oklahoma for a little while when we lived with my grandparents. And then back here to Maryland when my dad left the Navy and then joined my grandpa to start doing the tours.
And you were about how old at that point?
Third grade.
Okay.
Second, third grade,
so
in that.
Age, 9.
Yes, 9.
9.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And Annapolis, from 9 years old on, that was home.
Yes.
Okay.
Every summer I spent in Oklahoma until I was 17.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
So
very much a second home.
It really is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I do remember going on several tours with your dad. I'm sure you went on even more tours with your dad. Did that stuff kind of bore you when you were a kid?
No, because we didn't really get stuck in the van listening to it all day. We were out with our rollerblades, cruising the city because it's safe. It's a safe it's a safe city. And
would you say that's still even now?
Oh, I think it's so safe.
Is it?
It's
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of this. It's extremely safe. There's just one maybe little section across the Anacostia in like northeast that's, you know, still ghetto, but it's the whole city has really re-gentrified, I guess.
That's definitely gentrified, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, the median household, the average house price in DC is $500,000.
Right. Yeah, it's very expensive to live. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, a 1-bedroom apartment is about $2,500 a month.
Right, which is
and a tiny 1-bedroom apartment.
Oh, yeah. Right. Twice as much as I've got going on right here, and I hear you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Interesting. Now, so your dad has continued to do the touring business this whole time.
Well,
no, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, unfortunately, there's 9/11 happened and changed.
That fucked shit up, didn't it?
The landscape a bit. I work also with another tour guide, and he said that his business really wasn't affected throughout 9/11 because a lot of tour guides went away. So, you know, there were only a few.
If you stuck around.
Right. And, you know, hustled it out. And
what was it about 9/11? Just because of the fact that one of the attacks was in?
Yes, and they just closed everything off. You know, like you couldn't get near anything for a while.
So what's the point of touring it if you can't? Okay, okay.
You know, get near it.
Which is interesting because in New York, I remember visiting Ground Zero only months later.
Oh, really?
And you could still be right up on it, and you could still even see some of the smoke and stuff. So that's interesting that DC kind of took the we're closed off approach. But then again, DC's capital, where you know the VIPs live, whereas New York maybe not as much. But
sure.
that is interesting.
Like tourism, you know, not as many people want to.
Sure, the recession.
Yeah, that's all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, I know my uncle, of course, has been a pilot for American Airlines for ever and a day, and I do know that business was very much affected, obviously, given that the airplanes that hit were American Airlines. And I mean, I think the whole airline industry got hit.
Right.
But it's amazing. That changed so much for so many people I know that, like, you know, one day, and obviously it's a historic, monumental, crazy thing that happened that day. But it's amazing the ripple effects to things that you wouldn't have even expected would have been affected by that specific thing. Now, I mean, it kind of makes sense with a DC touring business. Is that about when your dad started doing the limo driving a little bit more in the funeral home?
Well, no, that was like before when we were kids. He just did that, you know, as like a second job. And then he actually got a job driving for the FCC.
Oh, that's right.
In D.C., and so he drove Colin Powell's son around. He was the chairman of the FCC, so he was his driver and took him around and all that stuff. So
that's when Howard Stern went to satellite radio because Colin Powell's son gave him holy hell on conventional radio, and he was like, I'm out. I think it was like 2003, 2004 that he was like, I'm out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And also Howard Stern got fired from DC 101 because on January 13th, 1982, when the Air Florida plane crashed into the 14th Street Bridge, he called on air and asked how much it was for a ticket to the 14th Street Bridge from Reagan, and they thought it was a little insensitive.
Right. Howard Stern insensitive. That would never happen.
Never.
That's never. So did you... Like, when we would study, you know, certain historical things in class, did you ever feel like you had an advantage?
No, I hated history.
Really?
Because I don't think, the tour that my dad did is more, you know, a general overview of DC.
Yeah.
But I also offer, you know, more of an in-depth historical, you know, information about the tours because I didn't know that information before, and it is important to know, and it kind of ties it all in together. So that's really what I'm learning now is the historical reasons, you know, why is it there, you know, in between Virginia and Maryland, and who designed the city, and and then Dwight D. Eisenhower came in and changed the landscape a little bit,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. That's what I'm learning about. Do I really tell people about it all on the tour? Not really, not at all, unless they ask.
Right,
you know,
right.
But
well, two follow-up questions to that. Do you find that you enjoy it more?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I hated history before, but I also think that was because I didn't have a good history teachers ever.
Right. Teachers definitely matter.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think that's why I liked math, because Miss Riley, I loved her, and she was a good. She got through to me.
Right.
So
it takes an expert, like a lot of experts. I was talking to my friend Katie about this, the biology professor. She was saying that there's a lot of expert professors out there who know their craft in and out, but they don't know how to communicate it to the lay people. Right. And that's kind of the key right there, is being able to communicate your expertise to people who are what? You know?
That's really the part, that's really the tour guiding, really, is trying to, put it in a way that is simple and they understand, and then they might remember. Right. Well,
what are some of the things that I guess are there most requested sites? Are there most requested information? Or do you typically, tell me a little bit about your touring experience?
Well, my favorite, everybody always wants to see, the Lincoln Memorial. Sure. And I like that spot because there's the Vietnam Wall, which I think is very interesting. But also right across the street is the statue of Albert Einstein in front of the Academy of Sciences and Engineers.
Oh,
and he founded that building because, to research sciences and engineering things, because he said that breakthroughs in science, engineering, medicines should not just benefit those who can afford it, but all of mankind.
Sure.
And, and Albert Einstein being, a physicist, engineer, I don't really know why he's there, but it's a great statue. Yeah. And you can climb all over it. And
really?
There's an urban legend that says if you rub its nose, it's supposed to make you smarter. So he's got a nice shiny golden nose.
I gotta get rubbing then myself.
Yes, I know. And there's the neat little quirks about the statue. On the ground are silver dots, and it's the stars that were in the sky on April 22nd, 1979, the day that the statue was dedicated. And they have constellation map and stuff you can pick up so you can see it all there. And then if you stand in a certain spot, there's it's not an echo, but it's similar to an echo. It's a reverberation from the marble that surrounds the statue.
Gotcha.
It's just a pretty neat little stop. And then we head over to the Vietnam Wall, which is a little somber, but it's cool because it's the only memorial that you can leave things at, and the National Park Service actually collects them and catalogs them. And then in 10, 15 years, when they ever finish the visitor center, they'll display them. Cool. And a Harley Davidson motorcycle was left there from the state of Wisconsin.
Wow.
And just neat, little mementos that loved ones have left for the people that have passed,
Right.
So.
I remember a very specific stop, one of the tours I went on your dad, that always stuck with me, especially because in later years I became obsessed with Abe Lincoln, was, of course, Ford's Theater. I remember very vividly going to that theater, and then I remember very vividly going to the house across the street where he died. Mm-hmm. And at the time, whenever I was 12 or something, I felt it, and it was a chilling sort of experience, but it wasn't until years later when I really started researching Lincoln's history and becoming sort of obsessed with him that memory keeps coming back into my head as that. You know what I mean? So it's interesting, again, something that happened when you were 12 that you never would have expected to have any influence or impact on your life, and then it's still, to this day, I think about that. So
Haunted?
Absolutely.
Like you were visited by Abe.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Even when,
that's so cool.
Yeah, and even when we went, I think there was a deli across the street that we went there for lunch or something.
Right next door.
Yes. And I remember even there just feeling, it's like the one time I went to Gettysburg with my family. It was a similar sort of feeling that I had with that. Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
Are you medium-y?
Not that I have sort of,
no,
maybe.
Not obviously.
Not obviously, yeah. I do know that my subconscious has apparently huge effect on, my conscious than some people, but whether or not that's medium-y, I wouldn't go that far. But it definitely was a very powerful sort of experience like that. Do you still go to Ford's Theater at all?
We drive by. You have to have tickets now to, get them. But
is it harder to do tours now than it was back when your dad was in his heyday?
It's different.
Different.
I would say yes. I mean,
because of things like having to buy tickets to so many different.
And and he used to have to stand on the street and like hustle and kind of like pick up people, whereas now we get our business from the hotels. But if I wanted to even do that, like try to hustle tours, I don't think I could.
People would be sketched by that.
Yeah,
I think.
That's what I think.
Right.
And then you have to have the right permits, and you can only stand in certain spots, and different people have already licensed even those corners, kind of thing.
Right.
So.
It's like trademarking a letter or something like that.
Yes.
Like, what the hell?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not as public domainy anymore. It's become more of a privatized situation. That's I gotta imagine a bit frustrating.
Yes. But I mean, there's the guild, which I am in the process of joining.
The guild. What's the guild?
It's the tour guide guild.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
is it kind of like a union or at least a group of?
Yeah, just a group. They say you can get jobs through it.
Okay.
The membership's only about $100 a year, so I'm going to give it a try and see, even if I get 1 or 2 jobs.
It'd be worth it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, or assistance. I've even found they have a test that you have to take. It's about an hour.
Okay.
And even just looking up for resources to help study for the test, I've found a lot of good websites, too, that I haven't come across yet.
Yep.
For more studying and research and things like that.
We do have that advantage over, say, your dad, where the internet has so many different resources that we could tap from. That, whereas your dad had to...
But it's also, could be bad because everybody, can fact check you now on the phones and...
That's true.
Call you out if you're
right.
a couple years off or...
Right. So you have to be very specific about the information.
Yes.
So you actually gave a tour to my friends Casey and Ben over the winter, or actually fall, I think. It was a little while ago.
It was like Thanksgiving. Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So tell me what a tour like that was. Like, tell me a little bit about how that goes. Because, I mean, I've gone on with your dad, but I don't know the whole experience. So tell me a little bit about the experience.
Oh, well, so I'll pick you up, from wherever we'd meet, and we head on into the city and, try to give you an overview of the city, let you know what we'll be seeing today. And I really like to stop at the first stop is the old post office tower, which is the Trump Hotel, just because it's the highest point in the city as of now before the Washington Monument reopens, that you get to see, you get the 360 view of DC, or 322 feet in the air. And then,
so you get to go to the top of... No, probably not.
Oh, yeah, the top of the clock tower.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
okay.
It's 12 stories high.
Oh, nice.
And it's it's run by the Park Service. It's just, a little 10 by 10 maybe room.
Okay.
With the open windows.
So you'll drop some people off and let them go experience that?
Well, I would like to go in, at least. Yes, yeah. With Ben and Casey, I was able to go through, and as you go in, there's like a mini museum kind of, and gives you I'll give you the overview of, in the Constitution, it says that the federal city should be 100 square miles. And so that's why the city was a perfect square and it was for 50 years until Virginia took their land back, because Maryland donated land, Virginia donated their land, and that became DC.
Right.
They took their land back because you couldn't sell slaves in the federal city, and that's why DC has that odd shape that it does today, because the border is the Potomac River.
Right.
So there's a neat museum in there, and it has a bunch of old pictures. Like Constitution Avenue used to be a canal, and there's a picture of that. It has some neat pictures of the Capitol Dome, during its construction.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of during Lincoln's time, that happened during Lincoln's time. Okay. Real quick, and then let me go back. The Washington Monument is still being repaired from that earthquake, am I right? That's crazy. How many years?
Well, they reopened it after the earthquake, and the elevator was off just a tad.
Sure. So better safe than sorry.
Well, and it kept getting stuck.
Oh, jeez. Could you imagine getting stuck?
Right, and there was like enough pregnant women that had to keep walking down. They were like, all right, let's shut it down.
Gotcha.
And actually a man named David Rubenstein, who I don't really know what we'd do without this man. He's like the 3rd richest man in the world, and he joined the Bill Gates thing where he's donating half of his wealth,
Yeah.
And he's donated the money to fix the Washington Monument, to put in the new elevator. They're building a new visitor center. He fixed the Iwo Jima. He's fixing the Lincoln Memorial. He's just done so much, cleaning up and fixing things around town. It's just nice.
Because you want to preserve that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
He bought a copy of the Magna Carta.
Really?
It's on display in the archives. He bought a Constitution with George Washington's notes in the margins.
Wow.
And he donated it to the library at Mount Vernon. Just pretty cool things. And
I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong if it's the Rockefellers, but I think the Rockefellers did something similar with Williamsburg, Virginia. It was one of those philanthropists, rich, names that came down and kind of purchased and refurbished and made it a touristy kind of being able to experience that sort of thing without it disappearing into history kind of thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that's interesting because that's why, one of the primary reasons, other than the fact that, you're like my sister, but one of the reasons I wanted you on here is because I've always been very into the documentation of things. Like part of my photography, whether it's portraits or landscapes, I like to document the here and now because things change so rapidly and quickly.
Oh, yes.
And that's kind of the interesting about what you're doing right now is that you're sort of highlighting and projecting and advertising stuff that's kind of fallen by the wayside, or at least to a certain degree. And you get to kind of, people are taught the bullet points now in school. They're the basics of things, and then you kind of get to expand on that because of being having been with your dad and you doing it now, doing a lot of the research. And people probably didn't know, what the fact that you just said about the, what was the name that you just said, the philanthropist?
David Rubenstein.
There you go. You know what I mean? Like nobody would know that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, it's crazy. There isn't a lot of,
And without that guy, we may not have, the Washington Monument. That's like,
right.
It's kind of like the unfortunate of when 9/11 happened, losing those Twin Towers, because that was sort of one of those iconic structures in New York, similar with the Washington Monument in D.C. It's like the pencil that you see, on the horizon, if you will.
Exactly.
No, that's very cool. So do you go by like things like the Congressional Building or the White House or things like that?
Yep, we see everything. Yes, the Capitol, Supreme Court, Library of Congress, which is my favorite building. If you've never been, you have to go. It's
really
the most beautiful building in America, they say.
Okay.
And, it was completed by 50 artists, and pretty much every square inch from the floor to the ceiling is painted with a mural or a mosaic.
Cool.
It's just absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
There's some sculptures in there, and it was the old post office tower, the Trump Hotel, and the Library of Congress were the first two buildings completed with electricity in mind.
Oh, wow.
So they were built with the wiring in and like elevator shafts and things like that.
Okay.
And it's just stunning.
Yeah.
And it's one of the three buildings of the Library of Congress, and it's the largest library in the world.
Yeah.
And only a quarter of the collection is actually books.
Really?
But anyway, yeah,
Wow.
I know, right? And they also have the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets on the night of his assassination.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
Right.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we drive by that. We see the Smithsonian's. There's 19 in D.C. We'll drive by like 10 of them. The Native American, African American, natural history, American history. You'll see the Department of Agriculture. You'll see the Old Auditors Building, Holocaust Museum, Bureau of Engraving and Printing, Jefferson Memorial, and the beautiful tidal basin. And the cherry blossoms are coming up.
They are. Yeah.
I think it said like the end of April this year is the expected full bloom.
Yeah,
day.
they had to push it back last year, I remember, because it's just such a cold winter that they have to.
Yeah, they announced it and said it was going to be like St. Patrick's Day, and then we got snow.
Yeah.
And so then it didn't end up being until the end of April.
Right.
Which was good for us because that kind of, dragged on our because that is the busiest time of the year. If you don't want to see them, do not go anywhere near D.C. that time.
Sure.
It's just...
Is that the busiest time of the year for you?
Yes.
Okay. So springtime-ish into summer? I mean,
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, it's definitely so. About, March, April is our busiest time.
Okay.
And then a lot of school groups we get in March as well.
Oh, sure.
And then May, June, July, August, September, even till a little bit in October, will stay pretty steady.
Sure. That actually sounds very much like my
season, you know, it's, when it's nice out, people are coming. Even if school's in, you still get a lot of adults and
absolutely.
So
even some
nice.
Kids, even without being field trips.
Nope, and they, you know, call and make sure, you know, it's going to be educational, right? And I'm like, of course.
Yeah, they're missing school for a good reason, right? Or whatever.
And I'll try to, you know, even put some more history in there if they, you know, seem to be having a good time and learning, absorbing it. You know,
they actually care. I have to imagine that some people are just kind of going through the motions.
I mean, some people will just talk the whole time, talk on their phone, and, you know, it's wild. I don't care. I just think it's rude to the other people that they're with.
Right.
But whatever. Some people, you know, are very involved, ask questions, you know, and, you know, double check things with you, and other people could care less, you know, like, why'd you even come?
Well, that's what, exactly. I'll have that with portrait clients where you're like, why did you pay me to do this? Why are we here right now? I don't understand. Yeah. That's very interesting. Now, I imagine that even though it's a slow period, so, you know, maybe that notwithstanding, but I have to imagine some of this up and down with the government fucks with you a little bit.
I mean, I think it doesn't really mess with us. It messes with, you know, the clients because they are not really sure. And I think it would be beneficial to come take a tour with us because, you know, we know it's open, we know it's closed, and
it makes sense.
Get you in and out, you know, see what it is. And because this time they did not block off the monuments and memorials. Okay. So you were still able to get up and in and walk around them and stuff. The bathrooms and like the visitor centers weren't open.
Sure.
So it kind of looks, you know, a little trashy off to the sides and things.
Right, because nobody's collecting that stuff for a while.
The mayor did work out a thing and had the city come in and clean it all up. So that was good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it really affects people if you want to go to the museums.
Yeah.
So,
which, of course, is a huge, I'm sure, attraction.
Yes. Yeah. And that was a big bummer. But some of the things were open. The Capitol building was still open. The Supreme Court was still open. You know, there's some things that you can still do, and you just have to, you know, give me a call and find out what they are.
You know, well, that's what I'm saying. Do you have like a special source that you go to find out all that information?
There is a list online. Okay. You know, the government has a website that lets you know everything that's open and closed. I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Do you have a lot of out-of-towners? Do you primarily get like Maryland or Virginia?
No, all out-of-towners. Okay. Mostly Texas and California, really, I would say, is about 75% of our business.
Interesting.
Yep. And we get, I would say, like 10% from New York.
Okay.
And then everybody else is just in between. A few international, you know, folks.
Yep.
We had a couple families from Germany this year.
Okay.
And where else? Just all over.
Yeah.
You know, it's very interesting.
Sure. Talking about meeting a lot of interesting people. And you have a huge background between, you know, like we joked about earlier, super fresh, but then also tending and waitressing and things. All those years, you have a very vast history of being a people person. Yes. So I'm sure that helps quite a lot.
Yes, I think it does.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. I enjoy working with people. I just started not enjoying the restaurant business so much. I do miss working with people, and that's why I like, you know, being in the tour business because, you know, not only with my customers, but with the hotel concierges and even the doormen. And, you know, there's just, I get to talk to everybody, so it's nice.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't imagine.
Be social.
Yeah, I somehow avoided a job waiting tables all my whole life, and I think there was a reason for that. Because it stresses me out even to go to a restaurant.
I don't think
so,
you can handle that. No,
it's
because people can be interesting and not very friendly sometimes. So
I did get a little bit of that experience, like working for Wawa or McDonald's and things like that. But it's kind of that. There, you're working for whatever your wage is, whereas the restaurants, you're like, I've got to be nice to this guy or else.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Did you love Wawa? It seems like such a good company.
It was definitely one of the better structured support things. Of course, actually, in fact, there was a time where I was working somewhere right after college, and I did not want to be working there ever again. But I needed to find something, And I even called Wawa. I was like, what are you guys paying? And they just weren't paying. For a college graduate, I got to be paid, making a certain amount. So I would have gone back had that pay been a little bit better. But although I didn't ever want to invest in, like, going to managerial school, like, McDonald's wanted me to do that for a while. And I was like, I don't see myself working for McDonald's the rest of my life.
I actually had a couple. It was a family, husband and wife, and... I'm not sure if it was one or two children anyway, but they were probably 45 years old.
Yeah.
Just retired, and they worked their whole lives at McDonald's out of Chicago.
Dude, yeah, when you get into management there, hell yeah. Nah, the underlings, no, obviously you're not making a lot. But I do remember some of the managers at the Cape St. Clair McDonald's would roll in with their cars, and I'd be like, damn.
Right.
And that was kind of... I remember some of them trying to entice me with that. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah. But, there was never a question that I was going to go to a 4-year university. My mom wasn't going to say yes to anything else. So I knew that wasn't going to ever happen. And in retrospect now, I mean, when you're talking about some of the, trying to eat healthier and things like that, obviously McDonald's is not going to be something that I'm going to be like, let's go to McDonald's, but...
I think they're trying to get better, but...
Right, but it's
still McDonald's.
It's still McDonald's. It's still, you go there for a specific kind of food, and that's fine. More power to people. But that sort of thing kills my. I can't eat that.
Even you. Yeah,
I can't do that stuff. So Chick-fil-A.
Did you then? Could you then?
Yeah.
Okay.
My stomach didn't really start becoming a thing until college, and I have found out in recent years, given my therapeutic exercises, is that was anxiety. It wasn't my stomach. Specifically, it was my anxiety which manifests itself into that area. So I was basically a 4-year anxiety attack in college, and that's what made me kind of
make it worse.
Exactly. So like I haven't been on medication in years, and that's because I've managed to some degree my anxiety and stress levels. So go figure. But yeah, no, it definitely didn't back then. I was a huge McDonald's fan. And in fact, work with, going back to Broadneck real quick to kind of bring it full circle, I worked there with Jamie-Leigh. You said Jamie Girl. Yep. And I worked with his older brother, Ricky. Kim Stone, another class of 99er. There were a lot of people back then, high school kids. And I mean, same with high school or super fresh. I mean, I know Aaron Gray. Who were some of the other?
Oh, geez.
Aaron Gray Pumphrey.
Golly.
Yeah.
Names April Engelberth.
Okay, she was a year younger, but exactly.
She worked there. Oh Lord, put me on the spot now.
Yeah, you can't remember everybody.
Sure. Heather Poe,
right,
and her sister.
Yep.
Jeez,
I know there's so many to think about.
So many, and there were lots of people that came in and out through their super. Jamie Boy even worked there for a little while.
Oh, okay.
It's just
Yeah.
Lots.
Well, and if you go back to Arnold Station, I know that the class of 99 is talking about a fundraiser night either at O'Loughlin's or one of those kind of places. And so going back to that station, even though it's not a super fresh there anymore, it still looks just about the same. I mean, there's a different traffic pattern and whatnot. And a few different stores.
Right, they moved over a little bit.
Right. Yes. And George's is not there anymore, unfortunately.
I know, unfortunately, yes.
But the deli that we stopped at every morning before high school was there.
Bale's Deli, that is, yes.
Yep, still there.
Still pretty good, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Same family.
Oh, is it the same family?
Still owns it, yep.
I remember going to with there a lot with my brother to go to the TCBY. Do you remember the frozen yogurt place that was there? I don't think that's there anymore, but regardless. No, I mean, it's just funny because...
It's hanging out in the parking lot even.
God, yeah. Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could walk there from Whispering Woods where we were. And, of course, I moved to Cape later and couldn't quite walk. But
we could drive by then, so that was good.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of the interesting thing. I never learned Annapolis until my adulthood. Because I was always driven everywhere by you. Like I never had I never had a car until late in our senior year, and even then, you already knew. It's like your tour guiding back then. It's like
let's go.
Exactly. You were always the driver. In the Shelley car for in high school, and then with your Mitsubishi.
Yeah.
After that and stuff. So yeah, you were always kind of the one reminiscing. obviously we can't get in trouble for it now, but do you remember, I don't remember why we had too many people in your car, and I
remember.
I was in the trunk of your damn car,
right? And
driving
it wouldn't go up the hill; it was so weighted down, right?
Right, and
leaving school.
Yeah, exactly. Like we, our senior year, we had a ton of those bomb threats, and then we always, we would. I remember one morning, it was crazy. It was like the trend back then.
3 times a week, it was like
it was ridiculous.
It was, yes.
And I remember one morning we were a little late coming to school. We were in Shelley. We got to school and they were like bomb threat, and we were just like, all right, we're gonna go turn around, and we just like went to my house or something and just hung out,
Yes, that sounds about right.
Right. I mean, typical high school hijinks,
Going to the barn.
Going to the barn. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's funny how that. But again, you were always the one driving. You were always the one knowing where the hell we had to go, whether we were going to Baltimore or Annapolis or Savannah Park or some of those areas. It was always Tracy.
So funny.
So again, you didn't realize it then, but now you're back to full circle, and you're
That's
like,
right. I've always been the tour guide. That's like what Joe Shinsky commented one day. He was like, "You're always just trying to have people have a good time, just like you used to." I was like, that's so nice.
Right.
And yeah, I guess so.
Right.
I do just want everybody to have a good time.
Right. That should be your business trait, what I mean?
Right.
Just trying to make everybody have a good time. Learn a little history in the process. Yeah, so we're actually approaching our 1 hour mark, Tracy. Did you think it was going to go by quite so fast?
I did not, actually. I was a little nervous at first. I felt it, but I definitely got more comfortable as the hour went on. Just in my own head, that's all.
Right, exactly. That's what it is. You got to get yourself out of your own head and just remember that it's just Jamie Girl and Tracy, just like we were when we were 12. Just talking about...
Yeah, and we used to do this too.
Yes.
Right? And play like DJ.
So my brother, actually, when I got this microphone, our old radio station was called WJJM, Jamie, Jared, and Mary. And yeah, I definitely did remember interviewing you. And my brother was like, you got to start WJJM again. So
that's right.
Here we
it
are,
is.
25 years later, still doing this.
2.0.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So tell me real quick before we end this, give me your specs. Tell people how they can get in touch with you.
So Tracy Dunaway, and then I have my
one N, right? DUN.
DUNAWAY. My website. Well, I don't have a website yet. I'm sorry. My email address though is Tracy Dunaway, TracyDunaway @live.com, live.com. So shoot me an email, or you can even give me a call, 410-507-6367. And we can build an itinerary to, whatever your needs are, or I can build your itinerary. Whatever you want to do, I can make possible. Great Falls even. We can do a Gettysburg trip. So it's all over. Anything in or around DC we can make possible. So
cool.
Give me a call. I mean, even if it's just for some questions, if you need help with something, even, you're going down for something with your family and you need to know where to park, give me a call. I can help you.
Right.
So
you're always just trying to make sure everybody's happy, right?
That's it. Just want to make everybody happy.
That's awesome. Well, you made me very happy for coming over today.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It's very nice.
Absolutely. The weather's crap outside, but you came anyway,
That's right.
So I appreciate it.
That's fun.
Right on.
Gotta do something.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, so Tracy Dunaway, I almost called you Tracy Butler just because that's how I always know you.
I still am.
You still are. Exactly. So thanks very much for calling. Thanks very much for talking.
Anytime.
Yeah.